I can't take it anymore. Larissa poured a full shot of vodka. That's it. My strength is over. Listen, Larissa, but there is a way out, isn't there? You just have to think hard, and you'll find a way out. Angela looked sympathetically at her friend. Larissa was completely downcast. Her hands were trembling. From a blossoming young woman, she turned right before her eyes into a tired of life, a broken old woman. Recently, Angela simply did not recognize her friend, and yet recently everything was different. Larissa was over the moon with happiness. She finally got pregnant. Laris, you said yourself that your hands began to dissolve. That hurts you and your son. Why are you going to have a second child from him? And if you have to get divorced, where will you go with 2 kids? Angelica, Yura's been wanting a second child for a long time. I told you, he wants a daughter, but we couldn't get it right. So he was nervous. He got me a new cell phone when he found out I was pregnant. He will carry me in his arms if I give birth to a daughter, dreamed Larissa, spinning around the room. Well, Angela sighed. We've been through this before, we know. Larissa's husband, Yuri, was a man feisty and irascible. He also liked to drink. This all sometimes resulted for her friend in very deplorable consequences. Often had to hide bruises under foundation cream and wear long-sleeved sweaters. However, her husband Larissa loved despite everything. The first school love. So she forgave him everything. Beats it means he loves, she joked. True, Angela did not see anything funny in this joke. Although in their village many families adhered to a similar philosophy in family relations. If a woman left a man who was promiscuous, she was often condemned rather than supported. Especially, strangely enough, women. Good man, they usually said. He works, brings money into the house, does not go out, well, or goes out in moderation, well, drinks on the weekend, well, sometimes attached, forces not calculated, so what to leave at once doesn't kill him. On the contrary, he'll apologize in the morning. He'll repent. He's a golden man. She thinks she'll find a better man. Who needs her with 2, 3, 4 children? Angela was just the kind of person who wouldn't take a beating. She ruined the family, left the children orphans, whispered about her old ladies on the bench. But the woman was working, raising her daughters, studying part-time at the institute as a psychologist, so she had no time to pay attention to the gossip behind her back. Angela tried many times to explain to her friend that what her husband allows himself is not normal, that a family is different. Trust, mutual understanding, comfort. But Larissa did not listen to her. And now, Larissa was proud that she could give her husband the second desired child. However, not for long. Someone from the acquaintances whispered to him that the child wife fattened. What started here? Scandals, shouting, breaking dishes, fights. Little Stasek crammed into a corner, dilated with horror eyes, watched as his father beat his mother. The child Larissa almost lost. She was taken away by ambulance with bleeding, and the baby was taken away by Yuri's mother. Angela checked her friend in the hospital, pale, bruised, but satisfied that she had not lost the baby. There's no cure for this. Angela sighed. Larissa said that just yesterday her husband came to her, knelt down and swore his love, promising that he would never lay a finger on her again. And you believe that? Asked her friend. How many times have you heard him say that? That's before the first drink. This time he didn't deceive me. Larissa smiled. You should have seen his face. He completely repented and realized that he was wrong. He loves me and Stasek. Yes, he repented. Angela stretched out. The police just visited him. I saw it myself. And to go to jail. I understand. He does not want to very much. Oh, come on, Larissa said. She still didn't want to take off her rose-colored glasses. Yuri celebrated New Year's Eve in a glorious way. He drank with the guys in the garages for 2 days. He returned home, and his wife got under his arm with questions about where he was. His phone had long been discharged, and Larissa could not call him. She was worried and ran around to acquaintances. Why are you embarrassing me in front of people? Drunkenly yelled Yuri. He threw himself at his wife with fists, killed her with his feet. Stasek by habit hid under the table in his room and quietly cried. Having discharged his anger and making sure that his wife is alive, she was breathing and even moaned softly. The man left the house, slamming the door. Went to continue the party, taking the money. Stasek, give me the phone. Larissa wheezed to her son. I'll call an ambulance. I don't feel well. Ambulance came with Angela. Stasek called his godmother, frightened by what he saw. Larissa lost consciousness, and a bloody stain began to spread around her. At the hospital, Larissa went into premature labor. The gestational age was a full 27 weeks. The woman came to in the morning. Her stomach was gone. She couldn't feel the baby. What's wrong with me? Where am I? Where's my baby? All these questions were directed at the nurse who was mopping the floor. Are you awake, sweetheart? I'll call the doctor. You're in the hospital in the maternity ward. A gray-haired woman with glasses entered the room, looked at the patient sternly and sadly. I remember you, she sighed, and I already saved this child a few months ago. How's my daughter? Is she alive? Larissa asked hopefully. What are you women doing to yourselves? The doctor shook her head. Is it possible to let men abuse you like that? You should run away from such a husband without looking back. How is my baby? Larissa repeated. It's not my husband's fault. He just didn't realize what he was doing. Your child is alive, sighed the doctor. So far that's all I can tell you. No prognosis. Your girl's lungs are not yet developed. Her weight is critical. She can't feed herself, nor can she maintain her body temperature. She's in a cuvette now. It's too early to tell if she's gonna make it. It's too early to tell how she'll develop. I'll pray for her, sobbed Larissa, for her to live. Pray for yourself. Where do you get such fools? Sighed the doctor, as if not a girl already a grown woman. And mind, do you know what the prognosis for such deeply premature children? Cerebral palsy, blindness, mental retardation, and also problems with the heart and lungs. So pray, my dear, pray. You should not have left your man even then, after the first time. So you are trying to justify him. The doctor left, and Larissa burst into tears. She had not expected such a turn of events. She didn't think it could be so serious. All she could do was pray. Yuri wrote text messages with declarations of love, thanked his wife for their daughter, and swore that they would overcome everything together, and put the little girl on her feet. Larissa has already managed to forgive him for what happened. It's my fate, she decided. One way or another, I was meant to go through it. It's a test for our family. Well, you're a fool, Larissa, Angela exclaimed when her friend told her about it. We choose our own fate. If you had left Yurka, you would have been able to bear your daughter in peace. Maybe I wouldn't have a daughter at all, exclaimed Larissa. It's not clear what's better, sighed a friend, but she did not voice it to Larissa. Larissa stayed in the hospital for a month. Her daughter stayed for another 2 months. Examinations, visits to doctors, referral to the capital for a comprehensive examination. Doctors spread their hands and averted their eyes. Everything was bad. It is unlikely that she will see, said the ophthalmologist, once again examining the retina of the baby's eye. The retina is severely damaged. There is almost no hope. Of course, we will continue the treatment, but there are no guarantees. Your baby has a heart defect. She will most likely need surgery. The pediatric cardiologist looked at Larissa. But first, of course, she needs to gain weight. Larissa cried. Her hope that her daughter would grow up to be a normal, healthy child was melting before her eyes. And then she was summoned by the head of the maternity hospital. I need to have a serious talk with you, said the elderly man. Sit down. The conversation will be long and difficult. You do realize that your daughter will never be normal, like everyone else, right? She won't be physically able to keep up with her peers. But that's not the worst part. She has brain damage from oxygen deprivation and premature birth, deep prematurity. She will never be a normal child in the common sense of the word. Mental retardation is the least of it. You have to decide now whether you need all this. There's no cure for your girl. There's no cure. Either you accept her as she is, but it's not easy, or you write a waiver now. What's a waiver? It's my baby. I can't give her up. Everything will still get better. I believe in it. Flapped her eyelashes Larissa. Did you listen to me carefully? The doctor sighed. Nothing will get better. You must realize that. It will be even worse. Your daughter most likely won't see, won't speak or understand your words. She'll live, but at what cost? Are you ready for that? Are you ready to be tied to her for life? You say terrible things, Larissa whispered. This is my child. I'm telling the truth. So you won't bite your elbows later. You have to weigh everything carefully. A child, especially a child like that, is not a toy. It's a heavy cross to bear for the rest of your life. Are you ready to carry it? I usually convince my patients to take the baby. There are some who are scared of the hassle or just plain bad moms. I'm telling you to keep your baby. He'll be sent to a specialized facility for children with similar diagnoses. You may still have children. I'll think about it. Larissa interrupted the doctor. In fact, she still did not believe that the doctor was telling her the truth. Larissa had read on the internet that premature babies often catch up with their full-term peers in the future and are practically no different from them. Unfortunately, she did not take into account that prematurity is of different degrees. The girl was named Ksayasha. Yuri assured Larissa that everything would be fine. They would find the best doctors and put their daughter on her feet. Larissa and Yuri took the daughter. The head doctor only shook his head, looking after them. He understood what awaited this family in the future, but they did not. Surgery on the eyes Ksayasha made. Vision was partially restored. Also operated on a heart defect. However, this, as it turned out, was not the main thing. Larissa, why doesn't she look at me when I address her? Yuri tried to talk to his 6-month-old daughter, but she paid no attention to him. Nor did she pay any attention to anything else around her. The girl didn't try to communicate, didn't recognize anyone, didn't reach out, didn't smile, nothing. She lived somewhere in her own distant world. Naturally, Ksayasha sat up after a year, and to talk and listen did not learn at all. And she also hated clothes. She tried to tear it off, wounding herself to blood. She was still unresponsive to anything and screamed loudly at night for no reason. This terrible screaming constantly stood in Larissa's ears. By the time Ksayasha was 2 years old, Yuri and Larissa were finally convinced that the doctor was right. They had a daughter who grew like a plant. Ksayasha learned to walk by the age of 3, but she never learned to understand her name. She couldn't hold a spoon or focus her attention on anything. She would look past the person who was trying to talk to her and laugh uproariously, or just smiled and drooled. Larissa couldn't get away from her. Ksayasha could just walk forward. She wasn't afraid of cars or people. She threw herself at other children and could even bite. She could throw toys and food. What is their food? Even dishes. If Larissa left her unattended for even a minute, Yuri hated her daughter by the 3rd year. It's your fault that we have such a child, he shouted to Larissa. Shame on the whole village. That such Ksayasha was born because of him. He no longer remembered. Larissa lived as in a terrible fairy tale without beginning and end. Husband drank and left home. By the time Ksayasha was 4 years old, he had a mistress and slept at that almost openly. Every conversation with her husband ended in scandal and mutual accusations. Ksayasha grew up and brought more and more problems. She could not be left alone. She wanted to scatter and break everything she reached for. She even overturned chairs and tables. Now Larissa understood why in specialized institutions furniture and the wards screwed to the floor. Ksayasha pulled off her clothes, and the contents of the diaper smeared on the walls. Larissa understood that she begins to hate her, this completely inadequate, incomprehensible girl. And she, in turn, was growing up. Larissa was horrified to imagine how she would manage her daughter when she was 12 years old, and the worst thing, Ksayasha's behavior began to repeat 10-year-old Stasik. The boy missed his mother, her attention. He saw that all her attention goes to his sister. The boy began to pee in his pants and laugh as terrifyingly as Ksayasha. I can't take it anymore. Larissa poured a full shot glass of vodka. Everything. My strength is over. Listen, Lar, but there is a way out, right? You just have to think hard and you'll find a way out. Angela looked sympathetically at her friend. Larissa sank down. Her hands were trembling. From a blossoming young woman she turned right before her eyes into an old woman tired of life. I don't see a way out, Angel. There's no way out. I'm afraid, very afraid that I'll lose my son too. He's already repeating everything with Xenia. And what will happen next? Listen, well, and Yuri what says. It is he who persuaded you to take a sick child. Angela frowned. What about Yura? Yura sleeps over at Lenka's almost every night. He never comes home. He says, I can't see her. He's talking about his daughter and, you know, Angel, I understand him. I can't see her anymore either. I'm afraid I'll do something to myself or to her, and that's such a sin. Now I've locked her in her room, with no windows and no doors. The bed is bolted to the floor. Only a mattress on the bed, because she just throws the bedding away. She just throws it away, and she can wrap herself in it. She almost strangled herself last time. She laughs or cries. I can't take her outside. She can't be dressed. She huddles in a corner and screams. She screams so much that her hair stands on end. Feeding her is a separate story. and she bangs her head against the wall methodically. I can't take it anymore. I can't. Larissa sobbed again, and she's only 6 years old. What do the doctors say? Angela asked quietly, looking sympathetically at her friend. They say it will be like this. This is her maximum. She will not recognize anyone, nor eat herself, nor understand anything a plant in the guise of a human being. I feel so sorry for her, and I feel sorry for myself. This is hell on earth. Larissa sobbed. Listen, there is a way out, Angela said quietly, but you have to come to it yourself. Are you talking about boarding school? Larissa asked with hope in her voice. But what will people say? They'll throw slippers at me here. Do you care? Angela smiled sadly. Let them talk. Think about yourself. Do you really think it's better this way? Asked Larissa. After all, there are special conditions, medical staff. I think that you have to decide for yourself. Shook her head friend. There can be no advisors here as well as the way back. Larissa voiced the idea of boarding school to Yuri when he came to get his things. I'll sign everything, he said, without looking his wife in the eyes. And in general, I'm filing for divorce. I'm going to Lenka. You're running away. Then, Larissa snorted, which is to be expected. It's your own fault. Yuri waved her away. I should have left her in the hospital right away. The doctor offered you, and you. How can you? My own daughter. And it came to that. About the fact that he himself persuaded his wife to take the girl home. Yuri, again, kept silent. Larissa went to the boarding school. The director, a woman of indeterminate years, listened to her without emotion. Visits are allowed only on weekends. The conditions, you understand, are not resort-like. There are not enough nurses. Giving your daughter here to us, you write a refusal. I understand everything. Larissa averted her eyes. But can it be so that she was taken by your car? I won't be able to bring her. Larissa walked out of the large gray building, shivering. Terrible smell, terrible treatment, terrible sensations. But she couldn't do otherwise. She had no choice. The car arrived on the appointed day and hour. Angela came to her friend in advance. The girl screamed and fought back, as, in principle, she always did when someone approached her. She was put in a straitjacket and put in the car. Larissa was shaking. It was good that she had sent Stasek to her mother-in-law beforehand. When the car finally left, Larissa burst into tears. I can't do this. She is my daughter, she shouted. What have I done? Think about yourself. Angela soothed her. About your son, about your future. You do realize that Ksayasha has no future. This and the next night Angela slept at Larissa. She was still sobbing, but to take Ksayasha no longer wanted. How could you? A native daughter in boarding school. Neighbor Baba Katya, bushy-tailed, reprimanded Larissa outside the store. Curious residents had already surrounded them, listening to the interesting conversation and waiting to see how it would end. And you can have her, this girl. Tamara looked out from behind the door. To judge someone, you have to live his life. But you don't understand this. You just want to scratch your tongues. What kind of people are you? You'd think it was easy for her. Larissa was already running home. She now could not step a step without people's judgment. Behind her back they whispered and pointed their fingers, shook their heads. How many, as it turned out, there were perfect people around, who never made mistakes. I'm leaving, Angela. Larissa kissed her friend. Things have already been moved. The house is sold. Come to my place in the city. My son and I have a one-room apartment. But you will have enough space. I've got Stasek into a good grammar school, and I've finally found a job. Of course I'll come. Angela hugged her friend. It's the right decision to change everything. Yes, it seems that life has passed, and only 3 months have passed since. Larissa was silent. She and Angela already knew the starting point of these 3 months. You made a choice. You had no other choice. Angela hugged her friend. Larissa went to the city to a new life. But after many years, she still wakes up at night from the heartbreaking cry of Ksayasha. Larissa seems that she hears it in real life. Silent tears roll down the cheeks of women. Well, sleepless nights. This is a relatively low price of such a choice.